Gospel of John in chapter 5, Jesus healed a man at the pool, and it caused all kinds of ripples and ramifications of people finding fault with it. I guess if Jesus would have left the guy blind and just went on his way, everybody would have been happy with him. But Jesus has kind of come along and disrupted the natural order of things. And so that's the first observation I'd like to make about this, that Jesus comes into the world and into our lives not to leave everything the same, but to disrupt the worldly order of things and create a new order of things. Everybody get that? He comes to create a new order of things in the world and in our lives. Not to leave things the way they were, but to make something brand new. And by so doing, it causes all kinds of ripples and ramifications all throughout. It's really amazing, some of the things that take place and are said in this gospel. Let's just begin in the beginning. In John chapter 9, let's read the first few verses. Because it starts with setting the stage with a kind of a theological question that's posed here by the disciples. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Now, what is it that the disciples are asking? Well, they're looking at an unfortunate situation, at a negative event, a bad thing, and they're presuming that somebody must have sinned in order for this to happen. In other words, we see a bad thing, and so somebody must have sinned for this bad thing to be an outcome of somebody's sin. So they say, well, did he sin or did his parents sin? Now, since we're told that he was born blind, that's a little bit hard for me to understand how it could have been his sin, if he was born that way. How does that work? I'm not sure how that works, but what they're really saying is, who's to blame for this? Who's caused this? And really, this is a typical way of looking at things. A lot of people look at things this way, even Christians. Non-Christians for sure look at this. In different religions of the world, there are philosophical ideas that try to explain why bad things happen. In Hinduism, there's an idea of karma. And karma means, well, if you do something bad over here, then it's going to cycle around and hit you over here. So that's what karma is. And so if you do good things over here, it's going to cycle around and hit you over here. That's not really Christianity at all, because that leaves Jesus out of the picture. There's no Jesus in that picture. There's just you and then this cosmic justice. See? And if it's just us and cosmic justice, we're in trouble. Did you hear that? And the thing of it is, as Christians, we've got to factor Jesus into the equation. The truth of it is, Jesus came, and all the bad that we did over here, instead of jumping over here and landing on us, it landed on Him at the cross. Jesus took all the bad that we did, all the bad karma, and all the bad karma that we had coming to us, He took it at the cross. And so what we've got coming to us is all the good that's coming. See, He exchanged places with us. So what the disciples here are asking is, why did this happen? Who sinned? Now this is, they're looking, I guess it's comforting in some way to try to figure out who's to blame. And Jesus really, if you look at His answer, He does not really engage their question at all. He doesn't answer the question, why did this happen? Who sinned, the disciples said, this man or his parents? Jesus answered, neither hath this man sinned, nor his parents. Now, He's not saying by that this man has never committed a sin or his parents are sinless. What He's saying is what they did, the sin of this man and his parents has nothing to do with it. The sin of this man and his parents has nothing to do with it. I just want to hammer that home. It has nothing to do with it. See, if you want to say, well, who sinned? Well, yeah, sure, he sinned and his parents sinned. We're told in the Bible that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So if you want to put it in that kind of context, everybody's guilty. See, I saw a book one time, and you might have seen this or at least heard this. People say this, why do bad things happen to good people? You ever heard that? Well, from a God point of view, now I know we look at one another and say, well, I'm better than you and you're better than this one. We have this kind of sliding scale of goodness, and Billy Graham and Mother Teresa are at the top and the Pope, and they're really good, and everybody else is down here somewhere. But that's a human way of looking at it. It's a relative way of looking at it. But from God's point of view, there aren't any good people. If all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, then if we want to say, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, as far as in a universal sense, in an ultimate sense, there aren't any. There's some people that are better than other people, and you might not have done what I did, and I might not have done what this person did, but there's nobody good enough to deserve goodness from God, because we're not as good as God's perfect standard. Does that make sense? So, in one way, we could say, if we're going to get what we deserve, then there's enough bad to go around. But see, the ultimate answer is, it's not that the parents or this man did anything bad to cause this to happen. Jesus said it has nothing to do with it. It doesn't have anything to do with it. Neither this man's sin or his parents, or it has this man's sin and his parents' sin has nothing to do with why this happened. In other words, there's enough bad things going on in the world that you don't have to make an equation out of it and say, because I did bad over here, something bad happened over here. Jesus then changes the subject and he says, neither hath this man sinned nor his parents, that the works of God should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night comes when no man can work. As long as I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world. Now you could read this if you read this casually and get the wrong idea. If you just kind of read this casually, you might get the idea that Jesus is saying that God caused him to be born blind so I can come and heal him. Now that's a little strange. That's like saying God's going to pitch me a softball. God's going to throw the ball real slow so I can hit it and look how great I am. That's kind of I think a perverse way of looking at it, that God caused him to be born blind and so he could go through all these years of misery just so this little incident could come along and Jesus could make it right. What it really is saying here, he's ignoring their question about why did it happen, and what Jesus is really here saying is, let's quit worrying about why this happened and let's instead talk about the works of God, because what I've come to do is to work the works of God, and that's what we need to be at the business of doing. Do you all see that? In case you don't see that, Elliot, would you give me the Message translation back in verse 1? I think the Message is really beautiful. I love the Message translation. This is one of my favorite passages from the Message. Walking down the street, Jesus saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, causing him to be born blind? Jesus said, you're asking the wrong question. Listen, whenever you start looking back and trying to figure out why did this happen, you're asking the wrong question. Why is it the wrong question? Because as long as you're looking backwards, trying to figure out why it happened, then you're not looking forwards to the answer to it. You see, Jesus said, you're asking the wrong question. You're looking for someone to blame. There's no such cause and effect here. Look instead for what God can do. This is really profound if you think about it. Instead of looking backwards all the time and saying, why did this... if we do that, it's a trap. If we get caught in that trap of looking backwards, trying to figure out why this happened, then we are, in a sense, it's like if God's over here with the answer and we're turned around facing over here trying to figure out why it happened, we're not turned towards where the answer is coming from. As, the Christian life, it can't be lived looking backwards. You have to be looking forwards. And there's really nothing to be gained in figuring out why it happened. In one sense, it doesn't really make any difference why it happened. We can read in the Bible about people who did dumb things and bad things happened as a consequence. That's true. That's a fact. It's true that if you do dumb things might you might get bad consequences. In other words, I could say, I could go out of here after church and say, what I think I'm going to do here on Sunday afternoon? I think I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive 100 miles an hour down Oklahoma Boulevard. And I could do that, but that's a dumb thing. And there's liable to be some bad consequences because of that, right? Y'all agree with that? Yeah. So I choose not to do things that I know are dumb. But on the other hand, let's just say I didn't do anything wrong and something bad happened. Either way, I've got to look to God to get me out of the mess. See, if I end up in the county jail through my own fault or through no fault of my own, through a case of mistaken identity, like you see in movies sometimes, when I'm there in the county jail looking through the bars, it doesn't really make any difference at that point how I got there. Now all that matters is, God, get me out of here. Everybody follow that? Now, I said all of that to say, if we have a choice about it, let's not do dumb things that cause bad consequences. Does that make sense? If we know... See, I believe in healing. I believe God can heal us, and I believe He does. And, that's what happens in this story. That's another thing we can observe from this. There's a man that's blind, and Jesus came and made him well. You read the whole gospel and you can't find a single case of anybody who's sick and Jesus says, well, I want you to stay that way. You can't find that. Everybody who ever came to Jesus, He made them well. 100%. You can't find anybody who said, no, I think for you, it'd be better for you to stay the way you are. No, He never does say that. Everybody who comes to Him gets... who comes to Him in faith believing gets what they came for. He doesn't ever turn anybody away.